Okay, let's move on.
いやーもうね
You know,
ジブリは面白い
Ghibli is so interesting.
よし出番だ
Okay, Nekoron.
ほらなんか口のとこに手が
I
入る
can't get my hand in.
よいしょ
Is it here?
よいしょ
Now,
大丈夫
are you okay?
オッケー
Uh-huh.
いくぞ
Let's go then.
ポンポコ平成
We'll move on to preparation number 2.
なんで高
Why did Takahata stick with the idea of showing the raccoon's testicles?
ね
Yes, the testicles.
高畑勲は
Takahata, just like in Only Yesterday,
と同様に
he did a lot of research to make things more real.
にしようと思い取材を重視したタヌキという由来に
He did a lot of research into folklore and tales that are associated with raccoons.
で例えば
Usually, when raccoons shapeshift, they put a leaf on their heads, or they'll do a somersault, and poof, they're transformed in the smoke.
いつの間にか変身してるとそういう描写はよくある
But
そうい
he
うのを
didn't want to do that.
で画面構成やってる桃瀬
Yoshiyuki Momose, who is in charge of the screen structure, also testifies in this book.
タヌキはドローン
When he's asked, don't raccoons transform in the smoke? He answers, no, not in Takahata's
煙を
film.
出すんだとしたらじゃあその煙は
He said if Takahata were to create smoke, he must know exactly where the smoke comes from. That's how he directs
ここまで
films.
ねその
So Takahata is very specific.
伝説説は民話とか
He's very faithful to folklore.
でタヌキの
In this film, the raccoons transmogrify by changing their cells.
煙がもし見えてる
So if there were to be smoke, he would need a good reason for it.
さんの変身シーンっていうのがあるんだけども
There's a scene where Oroku transforms,
親玉の人に
and this old woman jumps up and turns into an iron tea kettle.
親玉に変身するシーンなんだよねでこのオロクばあさん
According to Oroku, she focuses mentally and reorganizes every cell in her body in an instant.
組み替える自然界最高の
This is the ultimate miracle of nature, she says. Low-level transformation is just mimicry. You should keep this in mind. For Takahata, transmogrification is done by focusing mentally and converting all the cells in the body to a different form. When you look at this scene, in a close-up, you'll see that the crouching body of Oroku gradually turns into an iron tea kettle. Her whole body transforms. Every bit of body tissue transforms. However, some of the other raccoons in this film just change their shapes. What that means is, look at this scene where a high-ranking raccoon called Gyobu changes his shape. This is awkward, but his testicles swell and turn into a toad. And he sits on top of that frog. And this frog spews out smoke from his mouth. Like I said, Takahata needs a reason for everything. When the raccoon's testicles turn into a toad and it spews out smoke, all the raccoons around him run away screaming, meaning he emitted an enormous fart. So Takahata is that kind of director. Unlike Miyazaki, he doesn't want to make fantasy stories. Well, it is a fantasy in a way, but it would be unfair to call it that. It's very interesting to know the logic that lies beneath the story. So in Pom Poko, transmogrification occurs with female raccoons as well. The female raccoons transform into humans, but the raccoons that turn into huge things other than humans are always male. That means they need the testicles to do that. Well, it's kind of weird to show this on screen, but the raccoons gather like this, and then the toad spews smoke intensely like this. As the toad spews a huge amount of smoke, these raccoons with their swollen testicles come together and connect. And then the raccoons are sucked into their own swollen testicles. The testicles of 6 raccoons merge into a huge pumpkin, which turns into a hot air balloon and flies away. You see a lot of things in the scene called Yokai Monster Operations, but it's all about the testicles, really. There's even a scene where the raccoons come together to form a dragon, but basically, the non-human transformations are all testicles. That's how it happens. The testicles swell and they merge, and the raccoons are sucked inside. One of the Ghibli employees, called Stephen Albert, visited Disney to sell the film. The Disney staff said, "We can't possibly show testicles to American kids." They were outraged and got mad at him. But Takahata had to show the testicles of the raccoons. Well, that's partially because that's how it's told in folklore. You have to be faithful to tradition, otherwise the folklore meaning will be lost. Takahata's films are like an introduction to an academic theory rather than entertainment. In a way, he's kind of preaching that you should know about these basic things. He just had to be true to the real stories. Otherwise, the academic meaning will be lost. That's why he shows the testicles. Another reason was that he had a rakugo comedy storyteller do the narrating. This story itself is like an epic rakugo. I think only a few people know this, but he's trying to visualize a very interesting rakugo story. I'll give you the answer in the next Nico Nico Live. Watch Pom Poko on TV and think, what is this extraordinary rakugo comedy that OTAKING was talking about? When you think about it that way, you'll understand why he had to include the swollen testicles in the film. So please go ahead and do some research about rakugo comedy.